There are times when you watch a film that is so genuinely good, so genuinely creative, and so genuinely hilarious that make you think to yourself, I am just absolutely glad to be alive to see it. And I cannot thank the people who have brought this film to life enough. Hundreds of Beavers is that exact film, and while I know it will be nowhere near the top of anyone's viewing watch list, I just cannot in good conscience leave this film alone and not talk about it as a must-watch recommendation for anyone who loves cinema. So while yes, other critics and YouTubers will talk about popular mainstream films released this year, some of which I've covered already, please allow me to introduce to you and explain why this film is so special, and do not worry, I'll refrain as much as I can from spoilers. The first point to note is that this film is one of the best comedies I've seen possibly in the last 5 to 10 years or so. It was introduced to me as a film that is essentially human Looney Tunes, and if you've ever been a fan of the Looney Tunes style of comedy, then you're going to absolutely love this film. It has so many jokes that are basically structured the same way as the Looney Tunes show. From simple slapstick comedy to the more clever, wacky universe logic type of jokes, Hundreds of Beavers is like this one big Looney Tunes movie that follows a fairly straightforward story of a man trying to survive in the wilderness. I picture him like Elmer Fudd hunting Bugs Bunny or Wile E. Coyote trying to get the Roadrunner, but failing to do so time and time again. In the process, you are hit with joke after joke after joke, and man, it never ever gets boring, nor does it ever get stale. I was genuinely losing my shit and chuckling so hard at some of these gags. The sheer amount of creativity that went into thinking about them is just off the charts, yet at the same time, they're so beautifully dumb and simple because they're so easy to understand for anyone watching, while also being cleverly hilarious at the same time. What I also love about this film is the choice to make pretty much everything be completely absent of any dialogue apart from human groans and the once-off word here or there. All of it is filled with basic human reactions, sound effects, and music in the same style of the Looney Tunes, but crossed over with something like Mr. Bean. The genius being here is that the humor is universal and doesn't require knowing any English or any language for that matter to get it. Like the Just for Laughs gags, Hundreds of Beavers knows how to leverage very animated, clear and concise type of visual gags that are very accessible for anyone who don't need to know the extra details communicated via dialogue to get the joke of the scene. Is all so simple and clear. The next aspect that I love about these jokes is that not only are their qualities reminiscent to the Looney Tunes episodes, but they've actually also gone ahead and incorporated so many visual gags related to the video game world. A lot of scenes here borrow or create video game mechanics and imagery as part of the charm of how to get another joke, as well as how to tell the story. Simple things like going to a shop to trade in coins for new weapons or equipment, or to having a map that shows the layout of the different areas of the world they've been to. My favorite part is the video game sound effects and music that I'm almost certain they've taken from different popular video games to be used so cleverly for the scene, and I hope it's been done so as a type of parody to make the copyright clear and to add to that level of genius that this film has. But all of these video game mechanics and elements to this film elevate it even more so than just your typical Looney Tunes type of humor. There's a really good balance between the slapstick comedy and the video game gags, and moreover, it might be one of the only times I've seen video game characteristics like this being used to create a joke. Even if you don't play any video games at all, there is just such a childish joy and sense of playful wonder within all of these creative jokes that I feel like are so worth watching and also learning from for those interested in making comedy. Finally, for an independent film made on a budget of roughly 150 grand, everything looks so freaking good and artistic and just perfect in terms of the production. It's blending these worlds of animated visuals with real life characters and environments, all amongst the backdrop of this silent film era with black and white imagery. I was certain that this film had to have cost at least $1 million to be produced, because the animation style and the production look all felt so unique and carefully crafted and just so artistic that I couldn't see any other way of how they could have done it so cheaply unless it was hours volunteered. Even with the amount of props and costumes they included, how they did this for so little really puts a testament to the quality that can be created when careful attention and enough time is given to a project compared to other more mainstream works that have some of the crappiest CGI scenes that I've ever seen. Cough cough. Gladiator 2, and reading into the production history of the film to see that they used bloody Adobe After Effects software to create this animation is just insane. That's speaking so many volumes to how passion can be translated into making something amazing, and how something so simple like the Adobe Creative Suite can be leveraged to create genuine, bona fide cinematic masterpieces like this. I also can only imagine that the 2 years or so taken to complete the post-production would have likely been done under so many hours volunteered and not included included in the final budget. Which brings me to the ending of my recommendation, and the only last thing to note that despite all of my high praise for the film, I must warn you that going in to see it, that the only bad part about this film, and yes, there is something that to me is almost a little bit of a misstep, is the opening 5 minutes. While it's not horrendously detrimental, for whatever reason, I just find the opening 5 minutes of this film to not be as engaging or as good as the rest of the movie. Probably because it's an opening musical number that is a little bit hard to understand in terms of the lyrics, and it's just nowhere near as funny as what happens afterwards. Yes, it does set up the look of the world and has a nice callback later on in the film that gives a good gag, but it was a bit of a slog and you might be turned off right away when you see it. But please don't. Just get through that first 5 minutes and everything else is fantastic. This is a film that is the perfect mixture and a modern example of comedy films like The Naked Gun, Airplane, and of shows like The Looney Tunes, Mr. Bean, layered over the top with video games like Super Mario or Pokemon. It's just a wonderful mixture of all these elements. And I think I've said enough good things about the film at this point, so please do yourself a favor and go check it out and let me know in the comments below what you thought of it and if you've recommended it to other people who have also gone on to love it. I genuinely want this film to succeed and be spread amongst all the cinematic lovers out there. My only real regret is that I wish it was more accessible and that I wish I saw it sooner.